Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Horror Mine. My name is Vic Shy, and this is the Scare Score, where I break down horror movies and rate them on how scary I think they are. In this episode, we're going to see two of the most iconic and terrifying villains in horror movie history come face to face in the Japanese crossover horror film Sadako vs Kayako. This crossover event of epic proportions pins Sadako Yamamura of the Ring franchise against Kayako Saeki of the Ju-On franchise. As always, I'll be going over the events that take place throughout the film while our scare score goes up based on how effective the scares are or attempt to be. Both of the titular ghouls come from two of the most terrifying and iconic franchises in Japanese horror. Like Thanos, it was inevitable that their deadly curses would clash in a showdown for the ages for Assault to witness in this film. But how scary is it? Sit back and relax and join me as we explore Sadako vs Kayako and tally up the scare score. We are immediately dropped into a dark and creepy Japanese house with the TV on. A welfare officer is knocking on the door to check on the resident named Miss Yasue. However, I've covered enough of these movies to know that if someone's walking across the screen like that, Miss Yasue isn't okay and most likely not alive. The welfare officer cordially invites herself into the house and tries to turn on the lights that shockingly aren't working properly. She sees Miss Yasue sitting in the kitchen, but she disappears as soon as she walks in. She walks into the bedroom and discovers Miss Yasue's corpse with a cord around her neck and a look of terror on her face. The television suddenly turns on and Sadako swiftly appears right behind her. This was a serviceable opening scene that busts out almost all of the tropes we've come to know and love about Japanese horror. The dark and creepy house, the flickering lights, the unsuspecting, expendable character, and the brief appearance by the ghost with the long black hair. I liked how initially we were led to believe that she could have been walking into the cursed Saeki house, though it turns out that this opening sequence was reintroducing us to Sadako Yamamura and the cursed VHS tape. We are introduced to our main character Yuri, who is falling asleep with her friend during a lecture on Japanese urban legends. The professor talks about the death house and the cursed videotape. He says that he is obsessed with the legend of the cursed video and wishes to see Sadako in person. Sadako Yamamura is the vengeful spirit who created the tape. Sadako was a spiritually sensitive young girl who was pushed into a well by her own father. Sadako remained in the well for over 30 years and created the cursed video as the embodiment of her rage and agent of vengeance. Anyone unlucky enough to view the video will die within 7 days, or in this film, 2. I suppose they needed to shorten the runtime. He shamelessly plugs in the book he wrote into his lecture, like I sometimes do with sponsorships in my videos. Gotta buy those eggs. Yuri's friend Natsumi asks her to burn her parents' wedding video from a VHS tape onto a CD for their anniversary. She agrees, and we now have the totally random and convenient plot device that is going to introduce Yuri to the cursed video. We are introduced to another main character, a high school student named Suzuka. She and her parents have just moved into the area due to the same reason as every other in movie history. Her father just got a new job. As it turns out, they've just moved right next to the cursed Saeki house that has a big ol' keep out sign in front that absolutely nobody is going to follow. She is mysteriously drawn to the house and hears creepy voices coming from inside. And if you didn't happen to see Toshio behind her, the film kindly zooms in on him for you. The film proceeds to switch back and forth from the point of view of both main characters to eventually merge both storylines together. Yuri and Natsumi visit an old store where they purchase the dirtiest and cheapest VHS player. Yuri hands it to her friend and notices a clump of hair in her hand. They plug in the VHS player and discover that an old tape was already inside. Having fallen asleep on the lecture about urban legends, they are oblivious to the dangers of watching an old VHS tape. Natsumi doesn't want to watch the tape, but Yuri, being the good friend that she is, makes her watch it anyways. However, as the video plays, Yuri does what you should never do while behind the wheel: gets distracted by a text message. Natsumi is the only one who watches the footage and becomes cursed as a result. She realizes that she's just watched the cursed video and has only 2 days left to live. She receives a call on her cell phone and the lights begin flickering before Sadako briefly appears in front of her. Back at the old shop, the clerk named Keiko who sold them the VHS player admits that she knew that the cursed video was inside but doesn't believe in the urban legend. She says that she watched the video 2 days ago and jokes that she is going to die soon. Soon literally meaning 30 seconds later as she jumps from the store's second floor to her death. Suzuka begins having nightmares about the cursed Saeki house. Her classmates tell her about the horrible events that took place there years ago. Husband Takeo Saeki discovered that his wife Kayako was in love with another man. He became enraged and brutally murdered Kayako and their son Toshio before taking his own life. This created what is known as a Ju-on, a curse that kills anyone who steps foot inside of the house. Yuri goes back to the store and speaks to the owners about the cursed video. They reveal that they bought the VHS player from Miss Yasue's relatives and that the welfare officer also took her own life. Natsumi is now rightfully afraid that she is going to die soon, so they decide to consult the subject matter expert, Professor Morishige. Professor Morishige nearly has an eyegasm just staring at that thing. He watches the cursed video and marvels at it like it's a bigger technical achievement than Avatar: Way of the Water. He is overly excited about the fact that he's finally found the cursed tape and seems totally fine with dying in 2 days. Yuri looks at his book which states that one can be saved from the curse if they show the video to someone else. However, Yuri is the one who gave him the tape, so Natsumi isn't off the hook. He tells them that he is going to consult a medium to try and perform an exorcism. One day, Suzuka sees a young boy standing alone in front of the Saeki house. 3 other boys show up claiming they have a present for him and she leaves. As it turns out, the 3 boys are bullies and they fill his backpack with rocks. They all dare him to go inside the house alone and he immediately encounters Toshio. The boy, now possibly possessed by Toshio, steps outside and tosses a rock at one of the bullies. This draws them into the house where they are brutally killed off one by one. Another boy walks into the bathroom and sees Toshio's face in the water before being pulled inside. The main bully and the bullied boy come face to face but are both killed off at the same time by Kayako and Toshio. This scene was pretty silly and pointless, to be honest. All it really did was remind us just how deadly stepping into the Saeki house can be. With that said, the kills were pretty cool and the scene did offer up a somewhat tense atmosphere. Professor Morishige takes the cursed videotape to a medium who says that it's the most terrifying thing she's ever encountered. The medium performs an exorcism on Natsumi that involves excessive water consumption, a lot of splashing, and a lot of slapping. Oh, wow! Natsumi and the 2 disciples suddenly become possessed. Now this is where things get absolutely silly. One of the disciples snaps the other's neck before snapping her own. The medium says that she has failed and has contacted someone else to take care of Sadako. She begins choking herself and Professor Morishige attempts to stop her. What happens next is perhaps the dumbest thing I've ever seen in either one of these franchises. Needless to say, none of that was even remotely scary and was just downright laughable. Natsumi blames Yuri for her impending doom, which is actually pretty factual. Yuri makes Natsumi give her the tape so that she can watch the video and free her friend of the curse. She watches the cursed video and we finally get to see what's on the tape, and let me tell you, it is the least scary and disturbing cursed video in the entire Ring series. All we see is an old room with an open door where Sadako briefly appears and approaches the screen. Very disappointing, and this is the first time in Scare Score history that I am actually going to deduct points for a lack of scare factor. Sadako briefly appears behind Yuri before disappearing. We are then introduced to the 2 coolest characters in the film aside from Professor Morishige, Keizo and Tamao. 2 supernatural hunters who have mysterious powers. Yuri hands Keizo a large amount of money because I wouldn't deal with this shit pro bono either. Natsumi seemingly becomes possessed again and Keizo utilizes some sort of forbidden jutsu to tranquilize her. Sadako's hair crawls out of her mouth and he magically seals it into a bag. Yuri and Natsumi stay in Keizo's apartment while he goes looking for a solution to the curse. Since this is partially a Ju-on film, we get the super necessary shower scene. However, our characters are never truly safe or alone, even in the shower. Yuri sees a bunch of CGI hair on the ceiling before being interrupted by Natsumi. Keizo and Tamao visit the cursed Saeki house and are smart enough not to step inside. We briefly see Toshio inside of the house looking a lot sillier than he usually does. Keizo throws a rock inside of the house that seems to bother Toshio. As they shut the door, we hear Kayako's croaking that never fails to creep me out. If you thought the script couldn't get any stupider at this point in the film, you were wrong. The well where Sadako Yamamura died in happens to be located directly behind the cursed Saeki house. That is perhaps the laziest writing that I've ever witnessed. They come across Suzuka, whom according to Tamao is being drawn to the house. As if the large keep out sign and all the news articles about its residents dying inside wasn't enough, Keizo warns her not to step foot inside of the house. Suzuka has dinner with her parents before suddenly being transported inside of the cursed house. She encounters the spirit of the bullied boy but is brought back to reality by her mother. Up to this point, the focus has largely been on Yuri and the cursed videotape. However, I found that everything involving Suzuka and the Saeki house has been scarier and more interesting. It's a shame that they haven't been able to balance both stories with this jumble of a script. Natsumi believes it would be better if everyone died along with her and admits to having uploaded the cursed video onto the internet. She says that she doesn't want to fall victim to the curse and would rather take her own life. She locks herself in another room and wants Yuri to watch her die. She tries taking her own life, but Sadako already thought of that loophole and kills Natsumi herself. Suzuka looks across the street and sees the bullied boy's spirit inside of the cursed house. Believing he is still alive, she steps foot inside of the house to try and rescue him. She goes upstairs and gets startled by a jump scare that actually got me too. She sees the young boy's spirit, who actually turns out to be Toshio. Suzuka's parents follow her into the house and hear her screams coming from upstairs. They rush in to try and save her, not realizing they've just signed their own death certificates. Her dad is brutally killed by Toshio, and Kayako finally makes her appearance atop the stairs. In a scene that never fails to be absolutely terrifying, Kayako slowly crawls down the stairs towards Suzuka and her mom. Her mother's feet suddenly turn into stumps, making her unable to run away. Keizo tosses the bag of Sadako's hair inside before Suzuka's mother is pulled into the darkness to her death. Suzuka wakes up the next morning and realizes that both her parents are gone. Since Yuri and Suzuka are both cursed, they plan to pin both curses against each other. By making Yuri step inside the house and having Suzuka watch the cursed tape, Sadako and Kayako will fight each other for their victims. Suzuka tells Yuri that she's afraid and the two embrace each other. I'm pretty sure I've seen something very similar to this. Let me see. What was it? The pair step inside the house and Suzuka watches the cursed video inside of the cursed house for a double dose of cursiness. Furniture starts flying all around as Sadako appears on screen. Toshio appears in a jump scare but is dragged into the TV by Sadako's hair. You don't mess with Kayako's son and expect her not to take action. Sadako crawls out of the TV screen as Kayako crawls her way down the stairs. As both the ghouls make their appearances, we get the titular showdown we were promised 1 hour and 26 minutes into the movie, and it lasts less than a minute. Kayako gets a single slam on Sadako before Sadako obliterates her with her hair. The film had us wait an entire hour and a half for less than 1 minute of actual fighting. All I can say is...
No, look at me.
Kayako reappears and crushes the VHS tape as Yuri and Suzuka run out of the house. Keizo says that the plan has failed and that one of the girls must be sacrificed for Sadako and Kayako to be destroyed. He says that one of the girls must be possessed by both Sadako and Kayako and sealed into the well. Yuri offers herself as tribute and gives a cool head nod before walking up to the well. Sadako and Kayako appear on both sides of the well and rush towards Yuri. Yuri jumps into the well as both spirits collide and combine together into an absolute monstrosity, killing Keizo in the process. The new entity makes its way into the well and Yuri sheds a single tear before being consumed. Suzuka puts the special lid on top of the well that lasts for about 10 seconds before exploding off. The possessed Yuri emerges as a new ghost made of both Sadako and Kayako called, you won't believe this, Sadakaya. In the film's final scene, Sadakaya slowly makes her way towards Suzuka. Toshio appears behind Tamao and presumably kills her off-screen. Suzuka screams and watches in terror as Sadakaya gets closer and closer as the movie ends. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Sadako vs Kayako. But not really, my friends. I didn't have high expectations coming into this film, but this was a lot worse than I was expecting. I want to talk about the elephant in the room here. The film took an hour and a half to get to Sadako vs Kayako, and the entire ordeal lasted less than 1 minute. The fight was shorter than Amanda Nunes vs Chris Cyborg. The film was boring, clunky, and worst of all, not scary. I'll spare you all from me ranting about this film and give Sadako vs Kayako a disappointing scare score of 27%. The scariest scene in the film was when Kayako finally made her appearance and crawled down those stairs. However, this is a scene that we've seen many times before and done better. Calling this the quote-unquote scariest scene in the film is a real stretch and is me being very generous. But as always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all for tuning in, and I cannot wait to see y'all right back here in the horror mine. Y'all stick around.